All right, guys, here we are. Another night. Hopefully, this time you put something in your glass. Tonight, I got Cabal on with us. I'm super psyched, to be honest. This is one of the first times I've really tried it. I know they're additive free, but it's been special so far, and I'm really digging the profile a lot. So, without further ado, would you mind introducing yourself, sir?
Hey, well, thank you so much actually for the opportunity. First and foremost, I my name is Everardo Gonzalez. I'm the founder and creator of Tequila Cabal and Tequila Potro. And man, I'm just more than anything, I'm just a fan of spirits, fan of mezcal, fan of agave more than anything, because I do love my mezcals and you know, and even the Celerium and all that stuff that we've got a chance to try.
Awesome. Well, as we were briefly talking right before we went live here, I was I opened up the bottles for the first time. That way, I can have a genuine expression of you know what I'm drinking tonight for the event, and hopefully we'll end up getting quite a few people chiming in today. But I was really blown away with the flavor profile. To me, there was a lot of similarity to a brand that I know that a lot of us kind of thinks of at being a top tier tequila, and man, yours is wow. It's right there, and I guess the tequila that I'm referring it to uh, would be Cascaween. I mean,
Wow.
it's there's a lot of similarities there in the flavor profile and in the nose. Was was that a mistake? Was that
No, it was a happy coincidence, and I'd love to tell you the kind of journey that kind of led me to. Yeah, honestly, it all comes down to yeast. And when we were moving to a new distillery, I wanted to find a the distillery that we kind of help build in terms of contributing what is not just our brand, but our ideas and kind of our vision of how we were going to go. The first ever family to create an organic tequila is the Montes family, and we decided for he decided for his sons and for the close family to create a distillery where we can kind of really take things to a whole nother level, be a lot more experimental, only cap it at 4 brands max. Um, right now, we're the first one out of there because we've been incredibly diligent. But the whole journey starts with actually a happy coincidence of starting that curiosity of what we're going to adjust and working with our master distiller that we were able to find. Have you ever heard of Calle 23 Criollo?
uh, I believe so. I'm more of a
So
visual person, yet, but yes, I think I know which one you're
yeah.
talking about.
So the master distiller there is the same as ours is Hector Davalos. And we have been talking, we have been working, we worked with him prior at the previous distillery. He's an awesome dude.
Mhm.
He's a pilot, was a pilot in the military. So we were always kind of talking, and I became a lot more curious into the history of tequila, and I started digging. At the same time, I was able to, before my background's in commercial real estate, and I was helping my dad find a property for an exchange that he was into. The property, one of the tenants had the number one pie company of all of California, um, and we went to go visit them, and they were Mexican, and we're like, man, you guys are beating out everybody. Like this is it's in Julian, which is a very well known pie town for apple pie. I was like, how are you guys beating everybody out? They're like, well, we have a background in yeast. My great grandfather founded Tres Maguey's with Don Julio back in the day, and my grandfather worked with him, and my dad, and I was like, oh man, where are they? And they're like, they're in Atotonilco, Mexico. And I was like, I want to get to know a little bit more. I'm still studying this right now. Like I want to. So I met with them up in Mexico, and essentially they told me how Don Julio had done it in the very beginning. Is he essentially isolated a yeast from the plant itself,
Hmm.
And then, using that type of yeast, it actually related to the aguamiel in a way better form. It was way more efficient. It's kind of a lot more um, representative of the actual field and the actual environment that the agave grows in. So that's how I took it. A lot of the raw materials, whether it be the juice, then the mosto, which is the dead juice, and then the plant itself, the benca. I shipped it to the border in a freaking lunchbox. I crossed the border. Um, I drove back across the border. I bought a bunch of tortillas and bread and freaking random Mexican stuff, honestly. And then when I crossed the border, I was like, oh yeah, I'm just throwing a party. I ignored that little, lunch pail that I had. I took it here. I took it to a friend there at UCLA. She's a biochemist, and she isolated 3 different types of yeast. We started testing them against alcohols and heat and efficiency, and took it back. Davalos did his own thing with it too because he's been, working with these for a while, and we kind of brought together this incredible product. And during this first, couple of cooks, I was doing sugars tests. So every 2 hours, we were analyzing how efficient the yeast was, and we did ferment with bagasse, just some. And man, it was quite a journey, but that's essentially how we were able to derive this. In the first distillation, the ordinario is stainless steel. The second one is completely copper. And we had to adjust some stuff because there was a lot of, brand new place. We're still a learning curve. I'm gonna make some slight adjustments to the next batch, because we had an issue in the beginning with the ordinario, with the temperatures, because there was a miscalculation. So the tanks are like this, and they have a sort of like cone bottom. So that diameter was not measured right. So the overall volume cubits was incorrect. So then we kind of had to adjust last minute, and it was just all kind of. But man, several batches in is when we kind of isolated this. The first couple batches we put into some barrels, and we were releasing some single barrels based on those, which I'm very happy with. But our first true lot one is the one that you tried. Um,
Wow.
and I did it at 55 to not hide behind any water. When I released a mezcal, that took me also 6 years to develop. We didn't white label it. I went and worked with a maestro directly. 20 batches later, we created a mezcal. It's also at 55, and I'm kind of want to do every single lot one of whatever it is I do. I want to do it at 55 to kind of show my work because that's the legal import limit.
Yes.
So I don't know, and that's how I kind of enjoy it, and that's how it's kind of like I can't be hide behind water, I can't hide behind anything. It's like this is my 55, and this is the true kind of like spirit, as it came, and um, I thank God people are actually taking it in a positive way and responding to it nicely.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say that I've ever seen anything bad, you know, said about your tequila. And, yeah, it took me a while to reach out to you guys, but man, I was seeing all kinds of crazy reviews on it. And it's like, man, I got to reach out. I'd love to, have
I'm
you
glad
guys
you did.
on and talk about, your guys' journey and how you guys become. So you were talking about what I consider a mad scientist. So how did I mean? What did you go to school for? Because you're talking all this chemical, you know, mixing and testing sugar levels at certain, you know, how did you learn to do that?
um, the way I was raised is I was always, for the lack of a better phrase, tossed into the fire. That's the way I learned. That's the way I learned how to skateboard. That's the way I learned how to surf. That's the way I learned how to ride motorcycles. That's the way I learned how to ride a horse when I was a kid. That's just I just jump in, and I don't know whether for better or for worse. That's kind of, and like I said, I started this when I was 21 because I had family, relationships in tequila and agave. My dad and his dad, and when he was growing up, they had a fruit stand, and they would sell cooked agave, and they had fields all over Los Altos de Jalisco. And so that was always kind of in my background. I had a friend that wanted to import bulk, and I said, you know what, I could put you in touch with my family. And he's like, dude, I'd rather work with you. And I was like, look, if I'm going to import for someone else, I might as well create something that actually means something to me. And I always had a knot in my throat when I would be in college and I would see people with their pinky up when they're holding scotch. But with tequila, they would just can't wait to squeeze the lime in their mouth. And it just, I don't know, man, it pissed me. I don't know what it was. And I don't know why. I still get it. Um, that kind of knot in my throat because I would see how much respect my father and everybody and just the insane commitment and passion that goes into this. And I was like, I need something that represents that. When I was looking for the name, I was like, what kind of person do you need to be to rotate the crops? We're now implementing earthworms in our fertilization. That's making us biodynamic.
Wow.
We use drip irrigation. We don't buy agave from anywhere else. We actually take into David Searles, and I haven't told him this, but we've taken to David Searles' kind of mantra of keeping 5% of the field to let flower for seed. So we're very much about the land and the farm first, and that's what really. I'm like, what kind of person does that take? In Mexico and in Spanish-speaking countries, you can refer to someone as a caballero, or you can say someone is very cabal. It's when they're precise, exact, thorough, and intentful. And that's how I landed on the name. I needed a name that actually represented the type of person you need to be to make it the way we make it. And it isn't just a tequila, it's the way that we decide to be, knowing that there's going to be future generations. One of the cornerstones of the brand and the ethos is actually a Japanese proverb that says, righteous is the old man who plants a tree whose shade he'll never enjoy. And that's the kind of, I think that's true class. I think that's true nobility. I think that's a lot of selflessness that I think we lack. Um, and the pursuit of excellence is knowing that you might not ever see it at its peak, but you do it anyway.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it came out, and that's the passion that I take to. And so when I started this when I was 21, I'm all in, man. I don't know how to be half-assed. I don't know how. I can't. Although otherwise I won't do it. It's not in my nature. I've realized, so I just kind of fully commit to it. So I went in deep, man, and that's why. I not just that. I've talked to whiskey makers, Japanese whiskey makers. I've even beer people, whiskey. I visited distilleries here in Arizona and in other places, and just because I don't want to be limited by just the scope of what has been done. What I love about Chava and what I love about some of the Sergio Cruz and what I love about some of those leaders that I look up to is that cool. My dad used to make it. They made it good. It was good. This is the way my grandparents made it. Awesome, great. But what are you doing to take it to the next level? What kind of risks are you taking so that we can, as a society, as a community, leave something that future generations can enjoy even more than we have?
Yeah.
And I think that's what spirit is, and that's how I came up with a phrasing during a live like this that was, may the spirit in your glass be only matched by the spirit of the company you keep. And that truly encapsulates what I think is prompted me to learn so deeply about this. I studied international business with a major in French and a minor in Italian and film. Um, just because those were things that at the moment they impassioned me, and that's what I just kind of pursued. I did commercial real estate, as you know, I had mentioned before we hopped on, and that helped fund some of the stuff to get me started. But at one point, man, I was the horse head. People knock on it because it's a pretty bottle, and I get the stigma because I'm also a
Yes.
collector of tequilas. And I was door dashing on top of all the stuff that I was doing just to pay for the mold. After work, I would clock in for 2 3 hours, And I was like, I need a. This is the only way I can pay for these molds. Took me 20 molds. Everyone's like, dude, why don't you just do it on a regular bottle? And I tell them the story of my dad and how he immigrated and started making clothes. That's the background that I kind of come on. Half the factory's tequila, half the factory's clothing, and he was the first manufacturer for Guess, for Calvin Klein, and a bunch of these other brands that eventually went to China. But whenever I wanted anything that was nice, he would grab the shirt, grab the pants, grab the jacket, flip it inside out, look at the seams, look at the seams, look at the stitching, look at the thread count, look at the thread size, the thread diameter, everything. And he would say, "You're just buying the brand. You're not really buying. You're just buying the looks. You're not buying anything quality." So in my mind, it had to always look as good as it was made. That was just, and I didn't understand. But why not have both?
Yeah.
Fortaleza bottles, I love the way they look. You know, I think they're honestly very like, and I mean this in the most like positive, right? Like rudimentary, as in like very clean and basic, but also have a nice elaborate label and a clever top. And I don't know, like why not be proud of what you're holding at the same time of being proud of what you're sipping on?
Yeah. No, I mean, that was a, and please don't take this wrong, that was a very romantic story of, everything, because I mean, you have culture, you have your family heritage, what they instilled into you to hopefully, as you grew up, you took these things that they gave you, far as instilling, perfection. And I mean, it it shows in this glass. I
Oh,
mean,
thank you.
it is, dude. I'd put it right up there with Cascaween. I love
Wow.
Cascaween.
Wow.
It's one of my
Nice.
favorites, and I mean, there's a lot of similarity that I just it's one that I wish I would have started drinking a lot earlier. Well, not tonight, but you know, started drinking. I've got a bottle of Repo sitting on my shelf probably now 2 years, and I just never
Wow.
found a reason. But one, because it was a pretty bottle, and if I would have drank it down, then we would have had glass showing through. And
I
but
know, it's so funny. Like so many people are like, "Man, I love your bottles." I'm like, "Yeah, man, what'd you think of the spirit?" "Oh, I haven't opened it. It's too pretty." I'm like, "Awesome, cool." So that's actually why the reason I think it's a great segue. It's why the reason why I created the new bottle that I have here, um, and that's this.
yeah, I started seeing that pop up online probably the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, I wonder if they're going to send me the new bottles. But I'm glad you sent me what you sent. I mean,
No,
it's
I
amazing.
was planning on it, but we had look at unfortunately. So you see, I'll tell you why. We didn't have. We're still making this rock top. So I'll tell you a little bit. I wanted to get your shipment out well before this time. We just got a shipment of more tops and the other bottles. So I'll tell you a little bit more about this, and I'm more than happy to share and send you a bottle once we get have some crossing in.
Yeah,
Just we're doing it little by little because I'm doing small ovens at a time, and I'm actually planning to. We were still harvesting from the same field, so everything is from a specific plot of land that I put in the back. So I actually put the parcel that we have in the back here, and then I put the plant date, the harvest date, the average bricks of in the agave, and the lot one I put an NFC chip that you can tap it and takes you to the page where it tells you everything about the distillery. Now on the label, those arches are actually the arches into my dad's hometown. So it's not by coincidence, and that's also behind it is both a koa and a sunrise to kind of mimic it, and it's copper because it is still strength. On the bottom, I put obviously it's very difficult to read through this, but I put de los buenos quedamos pocos, meaning there's few of us good ones left, and that's something my dad used to always tell me growing up. Whenever I go to parties, Vegas, whatever it is, he'd say, "Cuídate, mijo, que de los buenos quedamos pocos." Take care of yourself. my son for there's few of us good ones left. And it's kind of holding yourself to a higher standard, but also because being a fan myself and having multiple hundreds of bottles of both mezcal and tequila, I really do feel there's few of us good ones left. And
Mm.
I put at the bottom because I want that to be the foundation of which or the premise of which I make every macro and micro decision going forward. Now we are a new NOM. It is NOM 1646, and the distillery is called La Roca. So I bottled 1,646 bottles with the actual volcanic rock that comes from underneath the soil. So this is actual volcanic rock that's from underneath the soil. So every single top will be a piece unique, different color, different shape, different all kinds of stuff, um,
Wow.
because it comes from that. And I wanted the lot one to be special so that you take something from our own soil back home with you.
That's going to be amazing. I mean, I mean, it's like, kind of like Peldar does with, the dirt on the bottom of the bar.
Oh yeah, paladar. Yeah, the
You know,
arrete out in that. Yeah. Um,
and now you're giving a piece of stone. It's like, we get a little piece of Mexico with
yeah,
with the
yeah.
bottle.
I actually love that they did that, man. When I heard that, when I saw that, I was like, dude, I'm so happy they figured out how to do that because that's such a cool thing, and I hope brands will keep doing stuff like that because as a fan, I enjoy it, and I think it's just so cool. And you're just looking at it. People come over, you get to tell a story,
Hmm.
and again, we go back to the history and story like that. That's a kind of everything, and that's actually why the reason I have this shape of bottle. So I'm sipping in my glass of mezcal, and my favorite types of mezcal are what's called clay pot distillation. And there's actually anthropological evidence that there was clay pot distillation that was occurring pre-Hispanic. So before the Spaniards arrived, the indigenous people were actually distilling in clay pots. They found this evidence, and they tested it, and they realized that there was distilling, there was alcohols, and so that's why I made the shape that way. Um, I drew it out and I made that shape to kind of honor the entire lineage and the history and sort of the heritage. I still kept the horse in the front, um, because it takes a lot of time, a lot of love, and a lot of care to raise a noble steed. Time, love, and care to raise a noble spirit. So I wanted that heritage to kind of still remain. And on the inverse of this bottle,
Yeah, I was
you
going
can
to
see
ask.
my master distiller. That's Hector
Man,
Davalos.
you're paying it all forward, aren't you? I mean, you're putting your whole life story on that one bottle.
Oh yeah, man. It really is. Yeah, it really is, in all kinds of ways. It really is, and I have this little saying underneath that says, "Planting trees whose shade we may never enjoy, plant seeds anyway." That's what it says underneath there. And there's actually the images rotate, so there's other images, and it was a really, really, really special moment. My dad, there were farmers when he immigrated to the U.S. He started washing dishes at Brentwood Country Club, which is a pretty prestigious country club, and that's what he was doing, man. He was just washing dishes there. We're now the Potro, and we have two cocktails with them. But now Potros are well tequila. And when he found out, he was just, he got emotional, and I wanted to do something special for him. So one of the pictures on the inverse of our 40%, because there's going to be more of those, is my dad cutting fabric on the table. And I didn't tell him. So when we got the fresh shipment, I was like, Dad, come over here, check out the new shipment. Like this, let's pop a bottle, celebrate. We always do that when we get a shipment. And I popped one of the bottles in, and I was like, look at that. And he's like, what is this? And I showed him, and then he saw himself through the image. And man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Just to see his reaction. You know, um, as an immigrant, as a son of an immigrant, and I know people that are listening, if you are, you realize the sacrifice that our parents give up is, one, they don't get to see their own parents grow old. They move away from their friends and people that, recognize them and hold them at the same esteem and same value to a place where they might not have the same esteem and same value. And my dad never took it any kind of personal way. He never, not to get any, but he was never had a victim mentality, and he was just like, I just got to put my head down and work. Um, and it was kind of cool to show him like this is what your sacrifice has kind of been producing.
Well, I mean, being in a new distillery,
Yeah.
producing amazing tequila like this, man, I only see an upward trend for everything that you guys are going to produce out there. I mean,
Oh,
I-
thank you, man.
it's not a hard sell, and I'm looking forward to the next tequila event I have at the house. Where we, do bottle sharing, and for the people who haven't, because I don't think your tequila is anywhere here in Kansas City. Um,
Not yet. Yeah.
but I'm looking forward to letting other people try this and um, seeing what their expression was. Because I could tell you when I first sipped it this evening, I was really blown away because I mean I love that cascaween flavor. You get that.
The green minerality and
Yeah, and the agave, yeah, mid tongue. I think all that sugar and molasses, from the cooked agave chunks. I mean, it's spot on. I mean, it's just an amazing flavor bomb that anybody who appreciates, you know, any tequila should appreciate this one as well. It's a lot more than just a pretty bottle. I mean, it is truly an amazing tequila that should be held up there with all the other amazing tequilas that many of us, you know, somebody's comparing you to Fortaleza and how much they appreciate that and they appreciate yours. So
wow,
it,
that's insane. Man, I can't really express how humble I am by even just that because um, those are just look. I still have a long ways to go. I'm actually taking night classes. Even though I've learned a lot of stuff hands on, I'm taking night classes for chemistry, and eventually I want to, be the master behind my own thing. And yeah, I think I'm at 4 years away at the minimum to give it a shot. Because I am kind of a bit of a perfectionist and whatnot, and I really want to do things the right way. But to hear all that, it's incredible, and it's I have a great team that I've worked with that's able to teach me a lot. I've been curious enough to ask thousands of questions, and that's honestly what's really led me here because um, you know I think it's so special, the tequila world, as well as the mezcal and the agave. It's just so beautiful, and I think the community. Obviously, all communities have not the most positive things about it, but I feel like at a core, the agave community is just so beautiful and so welcoming, and there's a lot of camaraderie and a lot of, you know, community. So I'm really grateful to hear those kinds of things. Yeah, you have no idea that means a lot.
yeah, I you have a lot to be proud of, and I don't I don't know how to say it any better than with Cascaween being one of my first true loves of some of the amazing tequilas out there, and I put you right up there with it. Um,
Wow.
1123, they make some phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
1414 is another amazing distillery, and there's tons. I'm a big fan of even though it's inexpensive, yayo, because the amazing flavor profile and all the citrus notes you get out of it from the cooked agaves and the yeast that they play with, and of course the classical music, another sexy story, but
Yeah.
it's just like that. I mean, it's almost like you're drinking a mixed drink without adding anything to it. You've already done all the work.
Yeah.
It's not just drinking, you know, tequila with a lot of pepper. I mean, there's very little pepper that I'm picking up on in this tequila, which maybe if I'm nice enough, I'll share with my wife because she doesn't like the pepper. But similar to story that we were talking about. You got to hide certain bottles, and
Yeah, yeah. My first 108, I was like, oh man, I just picked up the 108. I was really happy and pretty good friends with the people that import it and whatnot. And they've been telling me about it for a while. And I was like, all right. I was telling Jeff, I was like, all right, man, I can't wait to try it. So I went out, I bought it, and then I had a little sip, and I was like, awesome. And then I had to go to an event. I left it on the counter. I came back, man. That was halved, and I was like, what is going on?
you owe me another bottle.
Yeah, no, and it's funny. It's funny because she's I love her to death, and I actually this I had an old olive oil El Tesoro 2003 Repo. Oh man, and I hid it behind the TV because I was like I can't put it because I'm building a new shelf, a new bar to hold my bottles because I have them all over the place now because they don't fit
Yeah.
in one place. So I put it behind the TV. I'm like I'll put it away later, and I'll just put it behind the TV. She had her friend over, and she's like, "Hey, we found a bottle behind the TV." I came over. There's like this much left, and she's like, "You think you could get some more?" And I was like, "No, no, no, I can't." but at the end of the day, we get like that because, we hold that at a certain level. But how cool it was that she had her friend that she hadn't seen in 5 years. She brought over, and they got to just crush, pretty much crush a bottle, and they had the best time of their life. And I was like, you know what? That's what it's for. At the end of the day, yeah, that's what it's for. So when people come over, I don't shy away from opening bottles. I mean, there's like around
Yeah.
6 bottles that I just not yet, man. I can't do it yet, but
I
but
know. I
there's
keep
some.
on saying, "Oh, my birthday! I'm going to open it up, man. My birthday comes and gone," and I just like. So I have
Yeah,
a really
yeah.
old bottle that I've been cherishing, and a friend actually introduced me to it. He had a bottle, and it was a Lot One Teardrop Chinaco Repo, and
Oh, really?
yeah, so
Wow, the paper label.
I got to try it, man, and I was just blown away. I mean, it tastes like nothing that's made today, and
Yeah, man. That older stuff. I think partially, depending on how it's sealed, I think it's still there's more oxygen, and the tequila itself will homogenize and create a balance like no other. Like the Paradiso, the Party Paradiso from El
Mhm.
Tesoro.
Yep,
The old school bottles. Like
yep,
man, that
I've
freaking
had
French
some.
oak is like yeah, I mean yeah, it's like nothing else. And I had a 19 for my birthday. One of my I met through tequila. She popped up and we all shared it, but it was for my birthday. It was so special, man. It was a 1967 Herradura short bottle, but it was bottled on my birthday, but in that year. So because you saw the inverse of it, and I was like, wow. And I got some old Caballito Cerrero, and back in the day, they used to go in there and jump in naked and dismember the agave because everything was bagasse. That's just the way you do it. And
Right.
they would dismember. The reason they jumped in naked so they didn't contaminate it. Funny enough, but they would jump in and with their feet they would dismember all the bagasse, all the so it, because if you had the bagasse and they would get together and they would create knots, it would concentrate into a sort of acidity. So
Mm-hmm.
you needed to break them up, and that's how they would do it. And just thinking about that as you're sipping it, all kinds of stuff, it's just, I don't know, man, that was just such a special thing. And I think that's what's cool about spirits and cool about what we both like to do is collect. Like I still have this bottle of the old Pandilla, like I have Villalobos.
Ah,
So the old
and they're moving
1139.
distilleries.
Yeah, I thought they stopped it, but this was a sleeper, man. A lot of people hadn't heard about it or when I don't know, but like this was a sleeper, dude. I bought like cases of this, when I found out. And I have all the way up to the 10-year one, the Dos Hombres or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So man, is Los Hombres, sorry, not Dos Hombres. Wow, Los Hombres. One. It was pretty special.
Yeah. Uh, you know, and the thing about the old school tequilas is they're really mellow in you know all those pepper notes and roughness. They're kind of
It's
curvaceous.
it's a crazy
And
balance.
yeah, amazing balances. I didn't have a old Herradura that old. I think the one that I had was from 1984,
Oh
and
yeah,
and
that was still with the like the light blue label and
yeah,
everything. Yeah,
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 the light blue and yellow,
yeah.
label. And man, when we get these get-togethers, some people have to show off and bring a few old school bottles and let people try.
Yeah.
It it's just amazing to taste some of these old bottles because, man, to me that's the perfect woman. I mean, in a bottle.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's just so well balanced.
yeah. The
And
balance is
you
massive.
don't have those rough edges that
E-
um
Yeah,
and
E-
yours is like it's it's almost there. I mean, it maybe over time, it'll balance out even more. It's kind of like making a good
like
sauce for spaghetti or
yeah,
something. It's good the first day, but the second day it's even better.
yeah,
And yours is so silky smooth. I mean, you still get a little bit of the tequila taste, and the agave makes it really apparent that you're tasting tequila, but it's still, I mean, it's very curvaceous in the flavor profiles that it's sexy. It's a good drink, and I
hell
mean that
yeah,
all in
I
the best
love it.
way. I mean, it's about the best analogy that I could use at the moment.
Dude, that's the best analogy anyone's ever said of anything I've ever done. My girl included. Of I've never. Yeah, no, man. It's and I. That's actually why I've started studying other spirits because I noticed that I've had enough of the old stuff, the old Legos, the old Caballito. I've had a lot of the old stuff, and I'm like, okay, what the common denominator, man, is that they all have an insane balance.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not just a coincidence. I think it has to do with the age. And then I try a lot of mezcal, and then you try a mezcal that has been in a glass for 11 years. And then you start breaking down the chemical process of uh, the binding of the molecules and the attachment to oxygen and water. And I'm like, okay, so then maybe it's just time and oxygen. Um, it's kind of created this sort of like perfect note. Um, and I'm like, so what do you have to do? So I'm actually experimenting right now with dilution, using a French process that we're going to be doing going forward. I have a kind of like a theorem that I'm sort of testing it, and I'm going to be doing it with the next one coming up. I'm setting aside like just a 500 liters, setting it aside, and then I'm going to be testing out different methods of dilution that I learned from a French distiller, um, and we'll see what that does because I'm really curious about that because, like you said, man, it's so sexy, it's so balanced, and I'm like, what the hell? Um, how do I do that?
Yeah. And uh, when I was visiting Sergio Cruz, and we were hanging out, I mean, he was quizzing me, and he put me on the spot, and he asked me, okay, what's your favorite tequila? And I go, Cascaween Tahona. He goes, why? It, and he kind of put me on the spot, and it's, I love that super sweet agave, beautiful cooked, you know, all in it, and you got, just all these amazing things coming together. But then he goes into the back room and he drags out an old bottle of some of the original Viva Mexico.
Viva Mexico.
And it was probably late 80s. And yeah, I got a few of those. I got a few. I found a case in St. Louis. A Blanco.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. How'd they get it?
Well, the importer for the United States used to be in Grain Valley, Missouri, if you look on the back.
Because they stopped importing it.
Yeah, they stopped importing it, and they were cleaning up the warehouse, and they found a bunch of old bottles in the back, and he somehow got it out there, and it ended up in St. Louis, Missouri. And a friend of mine there in Missouri, in St. Louis, he's like, "Man, look what I just found," and I'm like,
"Yo,
how many do they got?" And he says, "Oh, there's probably 6 of each." And I go, "You still there?" And he goes, "No, I just left." I go, "Well, go back tomorrow." I'm like, whatever they got, I want it all.
Just pick it up, man. I'll figure it out, but just pick it up.
Pick it up. So he went back. It wasn't the next day, and I was starting to get nervous, man. It's like, man, if everybody starts seeing that this is out there, it's going to be gone by the time I get any. Sure enough, man, it was all still sitting there. And he was actually coming to the Kansas City side, and he brought 2 cases, a case of Blanco and a case of Añejo. And it's I mean, you got a bottle. I mean, it's just so gentle on the palate. It's got that old school vibe that we've been talking about for the last it's just simply it. And I'm like, Sergio, if you made tequila like this, you would be my favorite distillery. And he was like, wow. He was just like, I go, I mean, this is, like,
what did he say to that?
He was kind of blown away. I mean, he was just, I mean, he understands. I mean, because he's a wild man, and they're starting to reinvest back into the brand. But I mean, I could tell you the new stuff is nothing like what I got plenty of, and hopefully we'll have for a while, because I've been known to go on benches as well, all by myself. So it's yours is fairly similar to, that silky, well-rounded, creaminess, agave, nothing's, jumping out. It's just well blended, and everything's just super palatable in every way possible. I mean, I was really, I mean, I opened it up and poured myself a glass, and I didn't have to let it breathe, which was amazing. I mean, usually, those first couple, neck pours are rough around the edge, and just, but man, I opened it up, poured it. And in fact, I still got the bottles open, thinking, okay, I'm going to let them air out a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially before I get into the high proof. And yeah, dude, it was awesome. And I encourage you, if you see the horse, grab it. It's good.
Thank you.
That's my endorsement.
No, man, I appreciate that. I love that, man. And and that's kind of a little bit of what I took over to, for Potro, actually. It's a 2 types of yeast. It's the other yeast, the proprietary yeast, and we use a bread yeast for it. And the bread yeast is very, very efficient. So it cuts down my fermentation time. I tell people I cut time, not corners, with Potro. And essentially, I wanted to make the most affordable, best tequila that I could possibly make. This batch is 8-year agaves. Um, because of the industry, the surplus that we have in the industry right now, I'm able to get that, and that's what I'd rather get. But they'll be minimum 6 years, and this is from the Highlands, and that's why I did that intentionally, because Potro's Highlands and Cabal is Lowlands, so that way to kind of show you a different a range of flavor profiles, and it is a completely different flavor profile. But it was something that I was kind of really looking for because I couldn't find it. And I don't get me wrong, I like the Cimarron and the Retes of the world, where it was just like it's good solid tequila, well made, and I can mix it, and I don't feel guilty mixing it. When people come over and they grab my G4 bottle, can I use this for a margarita? I say, hell no. What are you doing?
Get out of my house.
Get out of my house, yeah. But I'm like, I also don't want to give them bad tequila, obviously.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
they're coming to my house. There's a certain expectation.
Right.
So then I'm like, man, I kind of, and I, there were sometimes the aretas were not consistent. Neither was the Cimarrones, and I'm like, not a knock on them. It was just I don't know what it was, but it just wasn't consistent. And I was like, dude, like, and if I want to grow my company and I want to grow as a tequila company, not just Cabal, but I want to grow as a tequila company. I want to go to a position where I can actually make positive changes through the industry. Then I need to think of like long term. And I was like, I want to create a potro. A potro literally means young horse, so it's a younger brother to Cabal essentially. And the branding is completely different, man. I have Chuck Norris. I tell people that I roll more agave heads in the guillotine in the French Revolution. Like it's just a kind of like a fun,
Right.
I say but your battle tequila, puro pinche potro, and it's always going to be under $30 or around $30. Some places it's like 27 if they get like a big case deal. Um, but man, it's 1 liter, and I put it at 42%, so that I can actually shine through a cocktail. And I don't know if you got a chance to try it yet.
That was the first bottle I opened just as soon as it came in. I mean, it's been splashing all over the social media sites, and yeah, it's completely different from. I'm just now getting into your high proof, and I poured a little more than I anticipated.
Nice.
But man, that's not that I would, but I mean that's a little bit rougher, a little bit more bite on the tongue. Let me think about how I'm going to put this into words.
Okay.
So you got the girl you're going to take home and introduce them to your parents. This is not the one. It's a little bit more rougher around the edges, This is bachelor night friendly. How's that? But it's still great aroma. I love it on the
the 55 man, I think the 55 it's a 3-sipper. The first sip, second sip, and third sip, I pick up way different things, and it's almost, I'll be frank with you, man, it's a little bit overwhelming on the first sip.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a lot going on.
Yeah, it wakes up the tongue a lot.
Yeah, a lot. It almost confuses. It confuses you a little bit because there's a lot freaking going on. The third sip is when I really start to kind of like separate some more notes into it, and it happens almost every time I drink it. I always have to do like a micro sip and then a medium sip and then a general sip. But I do think it's a 3-sipper that it really kind of changes as you're going with it. And it is, it is a lot more powerful, and there's a lot more on your tongue. And I do think the 55, not a lot of people get that it's 55, but obviously it is at 55, but I don't think it sips like a 55. It sips like a high 40s, mid to high 40s, especially at the third sip. That's when I really kind of like, oh, okay, this is where I'm at.
Yeah, 55. Dude, it's good. I'm getting ready to go for my third sip. So,
Yeah.
so I get a little bit more of the cooked agave in it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in there. It's a little bit more, a high note in it. Um, I'm gonna go for a fourth sip. I mean, it's
Yeah.
still waking up that tongue. I mean,
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's no
after I've
joke.
been going
It's
after, the standard proof, the
the 40%.
F5 is opening up a lot of the taste buds and making them you know come out and try to figure out everything
And
that.
work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you got a repo.
Mhm.
Tell me about your repo. How long do you age it? What do you use for barrels?
So we're at our old distillery towards the end. We were playing around with some of the yeast, but not quite fully developed as we had continued to develop it. But the repo, we ended up doing the batch that we've had for the last year and a half because we did 20 barrels. Um, is a little bit under, little bit less than a year and a half actually, um, just over a year. But it's 20 barrel blend. It's Buffalo Trace, Woodford Reserve, and Wild Turkey rare breed barrels. The first two at 6 months, the last one at 7 months, equal parts. Well, it was seven, no, six, 6, and 8. Yeah, it was pretty much equal parts. Um, and it was the blend that we ended up going with. It was for me my own version of what I consider like a unpeated single malt Scotch, and I refer to that not by flavor because there's definitely agave on there, but I use fresh bourbon barrels. I don't buy barrels at secondhand. They're
So it's
single
still
use.
wet,
There's
still
actually
got a lot of juices in it.
it's still sloshing around. That's how I ship it to Mexico. Within 20 days of having bourbon, it has tequila. I move quick with super quick because I'm very conscientious of the flavor profiles that it's going to pull from the wood. Um, and that's what I need something that to stand up what I think is to that Blanco, especially because we now only wait 7 years. So all our agaves are going to be minimum 7 years um, going forward. So there's a lot of, and then we cook it for almost 50 hours and we start slow introducing. So there's a natural caramelized sweetness
Mm-hmm.
into it, and that's why I was like, I need a barrel to really stand up to that to kind of create like that equal sort of opposing force to kind of give it that sort of balance. And I freaking loved it. This repo. Some people like it more than the Blanco. Some people don't. But either way, we've been doing very successful in cocktails, in old fashions. Um, Really, really good. And that's the Repo's the one I like to play with a lot more with cocktails, honestly, because I think it's kind of interesting. I'm not a cocktail maker by any means, by the way. My business partner, Dustin, he's very much into cocktails, and he's created some great ones, and he's curated some menus in the market with our brand. But the Repo is really where I think it's the Goldilocks. It has enough of that agave, but also has that barrel that you're kind of looking for, and it's a nice little balanced melody uh, that I really focus on. For me, the most thing that I focus on is balance.
Right.
To have the curve even, fade in and fade out. Uh, the 55 actually has a little bit more of a spike in the middle, but the 40 has a more of a kind of curve. But I try not to focus on the big middle spike. Um, Not to say that's anything bad. I just prefer a more balanced kind of spirit because I feel like it's more entertaining on your palate. You can sit with it and kind of like process it in a different way. and it's almost like a smooth jazz.
Yes.
Um,
I mean, that 40 is amazing. I mean,
it's
and I'm not
amazing.
saying anything bad about the 55.
Yeah,
It takes your palate a little bit to adapt.
yeah,
Like you said, you need a few sips, and I'm starting to get some of it now, and similar. But I actually find more citrus notes in your 55 than I do your 40. And looking over some of the profiles on TMM, I was really I got some of the citrus notes out of it, not as much. uh, I think the agave balances it out, and
yeah,
it definitely makes it you know more prominent than the citrus notes, similar to a cascaween. But in your high proof, now I'm starting to pick up the lime, the citrus notes from it. And I don't know if it's the higher proof that just makes it explode more, or your taste buds are more awake and analyze
yeah.
more.
It's a couple of those things. The water that we do use, um, it is 340-meter deep well water. So I think the minerality in the natural volcanic filtration of the water, um, it adds to the 40% levelness, whereas the distilling pretty much distilled to proof at 55, it has all of it draws from the essence of the terroir. Um, that's at 1,200 meters of elevation, and we've had other we had a 1,400-meter elevation blanco that had a little bit more sweetness, and I had more of the banana flavor than versus the citrus. And then we've had more that are more mineral. I think in between we've noticed that we do get a little bit more. I equate the citrus, maybe because I was grew up in half the time in Mexico. It's like almost like a tamarind sweetness.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, um, and that's the the citrus, and that's the kind of I get a little bit of I get some floral, I get some tamarind, and then I get a little bit of like a mint, and then I get more botanicals toward the end, and then I get the agave at the very end finish. Um, so I get a lot more notes on the 55 if I'm able to like be patient with it and kind of sit with it and break it down. And the 40% is much more concentrated towards the 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 same notes but done really really clear, if that makes sense.
uh, I would say sexier.
Yeah. More curvaceous, as you said.
Yeah, curvaceous. um, let's go back to the. I had a couple questions when we were talking about the
Yeah.
your repo,
Yeah.
and maybe some of it passes over into your anejo. So you get brand new barrels, or you get barrels, fill them back up in 20 days. They're still sloshing around. You're using, sounds like some premium bourbon barrels, premium brand bourbon barrels, and you're doing an amazing blend job with them. Do you reuse that barrel again?
No, I sell it.
Nice.
So everything is fresh barrels. Everything.
Fresh
Well,
barrels.
now that I have Potro, so I'm actually going to be emptying some of the barrels and shipping them to my to the other distillery, and I'm going to do the Potro. I'm going to do like a well repo, also 42% using my Cabal barrels, which would be
Nice.
kind of cool because it'll be kind of premium. So I'm excited for that. Um, so yeah, that's what I'll do. But otherwise, I would just sell it.
Yeah. So I'm not a bourbon person by any means.
Hmm.
I got a neighbor who tries to convert me. He does a horrible job at it, and he drinks, really good bourbons. I know he does,
Yeah,
but that's not my cup of tea. But I got, what's that?
That's a rare character.
Ah,
Uh, it's a freaking phenomenal bourbon too.
so I was talking to a new friend, and he was telling me that some of these bourbon companies, they're taking the barrels apart and they're actually squeezing the remaining juice out of the wood
Hmm.
to create this huge flavor bomb because of all that juice that's been soaking directly in the wood. I
Yeah.
mean, just some ideas there for you. If you before you send it off, I don't know what that would be like. I mean, I'm sure you'll have
Huh.
to go through a pretty heavy filtration, but
Yeah.
you know, it
Yeah,
got
that's
my
actually
brain
that's
cooking.
actually that's actually interesting. Um,
And I heard that, I mean, you're not getting a whole lot of bottles out of it. It becomes a very special bottle. Generally, the master distiller or the brand owner gets to keep that bottle, but it's something, you know that has been, part of the wood, and they're literally squeezing it out of the wood in order to get it. So you have this amazing wood flavor.
yeah, you
It
definitely need like a hydraulic press for something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, which I feel like in theory I can make happen. Um, but I'm actually curious if I were to reblend that in,
yeah.
what that
What would that?
does.
I mean, it's like adding vanilla extract to something.
Yeah.
It's
Is that an additive?
well, in the tequila world, it is. But I
Yeah,
mean, but you're literally taking the wood, you're taking the
yeah,
juice from the wood, and you're adding it back into, you know, maybe you don't do a full barrel, you do a smaller barrel. That way you can, concentrate those juices back into the tequila.
yeah.
It's just me,
My
like
my
like
my whole my whole my whole brain is like, okay, what if I get all those juices and I squeeze all those and I put them in another barrel and then I squeeze that barrel.
well, there you go. I got something for you to ponder now.
Yeah, yeah. There's no, that's interesting, man. I think those are kind of cool things. If I were to do something like that, um, essentially you're destroying the barrel,
Yes.
but when maybe you keep a bottle or two, and then certain people visit the distillery that you think that they've more learned or further along in their agave journey, that you feel like they will understand and appreciate it. You pour a little bit, and I think that's a cool kind of like, you got to try the barrel juice.
Right. Right. It kind of goes along with, you hear the story about Tequila Ocho, and they would have their meetings in their boardroom, and they would have all these, samples laying out, and they had a wooden barrel sitting there in it, and they would, you know, take all the samples that everybody didn't drink out of the bottles, and they would pour it in there, and then they finally filled
Yeah,
the barrel up.
yeah. Felipe did that too, and I've been doing that too, and I'm actually pitching it to one of the stores. I'm making a very special bottle. One of my
Like an
restaurants,
infinity barrel.
an infinity bottle barrel. Yeah. So I have an infinity flask. I usually carry with me, and sometimes people ask me, "Hey man, you have the flask?" And I pull it out because I have like XA, Blanco, a whole bunch of batches, a whole bunch of stuff, random stuff. It always tastes different. So we always like sometimes we have infinity blends, and yeah, exactly that. And I'm kind of pitching it to a restaurant right now where I'm making a very special bottle, um, super special, engraving it and all kinds of stuff. That kind of, so when the people order it, almost like a white glove kind of deal where they're pouring it and you never know what you're gonna get. It's the infinity bottle, and I
Right.
think that's cool, man. And I think that's part of the experience, and that's something that I always try to get creative with whoever I partner with in restaurants and stuff like that, and just to kind of just be a little bit weird and do some stuff that just when people come around and like, man, that's just cool.
Yeah,
And that's it.
you know, it's that piece that ends up going up on the shelf. You know, you don't break it out all that often.
Yeah.
They had some corny name for it, like all that shit or something. You know, all that. You know,
Yeah,
all
in
that stuff.
Spanish, it's in Spanish. Well, in Mexico, there's a place that I go to, Mexico City, which I very much recommend it if anyone goes to Mexico City. It's called La Parrilla Danesa, the Danish grill. It translates to exactly, and yeah, they have great meats, man. It's a great tacos and great. It's so flavorful. But they have a taco that's called de lo que cae, and it translates to of what falls. So all the little bits of meats from all kinds of things that whatever falls on the bottom of their grill kind of deal, they pick it up, they put a bunch of cheese with it, and then they give it to you. That's like, and it's freaking fire. It's so good. And I always at the end, once they're like, oh, we have that little space left, we order our double shot of siete leguas with la sangrita, and then that last taco, de lo que cae. And I think that's freaking awesome because it always tastes different.
Yeah, it's never the same. Yeah, and I was honored enough that I hosted a tequila um, bottle share with a bunch of guys, and we just met, and one of them actually was a rep for Tequila Ocho. So he brought out some very special bottles. He brought out the Tequila Ocho 888 bottle,
Mm.
which wow, that was amazing. Talk about another sexy, bottle, just all kinds of flavor going on in your mouth. But then he also had one of those little bottles, and the only way you got it is if you visited the distillery.
Yeah.
And it's nothing special, but the story behind it makes it sexy. And
Yes.
it just, hey, I got this because I went to the distillery and visited with, and they gave me a bottle. So just cool. Like I got off way off topic. I want how long do you age your repo?
So it's a 3 barrel blend, and the first 2 barrels, the Buffalo Trace and the Woodford Reserve, are 6 months. The
Six,
Wild Turkey Rare Breed is 7 months,
and
and
then
then
you blend.
we blend, yeah. But the añejo going forward, the older añejos were not like this, but the most recent one, and people have really taken to it. We call it the añejo 44. It's a 44% ABV, but however, it's 1/3 neutral French oak. And I went with neutral or virgin French oak because, like I said, I think it already has enough sweetness to my taste in the blanco. I don't want to add more from like a cognac barrel or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the neutral French oak really gives it. And when I sip it, man, it always starts differently and ends differently. It finishes off like banana nut bread, and it starts off just like blood orange, nut, dark chocolate, cherry. Like it starts off with that, and it finishes off with that French oak, kind of familiar, and it's yeah. I mean, I enjoy cigars. I really like that with the cigar because it's 44%, and there's a lot more viscosity, so it coats your tongue
Yeah.
and mouth a little bit more. So with a nice cigar, it just pairs incredibly well. And I going forward now, that's all I'm going to do for añejo. So repos will always be bourbon, and añejos will always be 1/3 neutral French oak. And I just went to mentioned I'm a French major. I used to go to France a lot more, but I found the barrel makers for an incredible Bordeaux wine that I really like. And the barrel makers through at the beginning they didn't want to tell me, but later on I found out, and it was kind of a happy coincidence. I ran into their suppliers anyways. It was a really cool thing. So I bought these premium barrels, not cheap at all, but I was like, you know what, I gotta bite the bullet. I wanna make something really dope because these are two. I got 3 different types of grains. I got a fine grain, a medium grain, and a whiskey grain, and then they're all toasted, so level 3, and they're all seasoned 2 years. So seasoning, how it works in wood, before they make the barrels, it's just the wood planks, and
Hmm.
they leave it out. There's many ways you can do it. What I think, from what little that I've learned and from the people that I've spoken to, the learned individuals, is that they leave it out at the base of the French Alps. They leave it out in oxygen, and that oxygen pulls the tannins. You don't want it to pull too many tannins. That's why 2 years is sort of the sweet spot. But that's what seasoning kind of means. So they've all been seasoned for 2 years before they're made into a barrel. And I bought about 20 of those barrels for future blending. We just put tequila in them probably a month and a half ago. So I'm of this lot one. So technically it's lot two. So that 40% that you're sipping on, that's in these barrels right now.
Uh, the anejo here.
No.
Uh,
The 40% that you sipped
oh,
on, that
oh
is
yeah,
number
yeah, yeah,
44.
yeah. This
Yeah,
is lot one.
yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. And that going into, and I like the French oak. I mean, there's not a lot of tequila companies that play with French oak that much. Uh, One of my favorite would be Tao. Out of
oh yeah,
1414.
yeah,
He
14%.
does a blend of two French oaks and or I take that back, one French oak barrel. Um, no, it is. It's two French oak and one American white oak, and those
Oh,
French
okay.
oaks
So
make it a lot.
the inverse of what I did. That's
Yes,
cool. Oh,
and
that's cool.
he ages the Repo 8 months, and I believe the Anejo for 18 months.
Mm.
And that Repo to me, it's just simply amazing. Super sweet, and you can taste that French oak. I mean, it's such a unique flavor compared to a lot of the other tequilas that we drink on a day-to-day basis. That it's a magical note that you
Yeah.
get from that French oak, and it's now you're starting to see some people playing with German oak,
Yeah,
and
the Volants.
stuff. Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah, I got I ended up not using it, but I got a Swedish uh, barrel. So it's a Swedish oak, and then I've been playing around. I've been looking for a specific Sautern barrel to finish it. Um, but I'm really close. But I'm eventually I want to do like a single release, like a yearly release, not necessarily like the winter blend, but like a single release of just kind of like you know theories and thoughts that we have as a team. Or like I wonder if, and
mhm.
then we'll have whatever bottles come out of that. We'll just have it out, and people like it or don't. But um, I think it'll be kind of interesting, something that we can all. And what I want to do is I want to add an NFC chip on the back of those, kind of like these that I have. I'll have a. You heard it here first, by the way. I want to add an NFC chip so that you can scan it, and you can give your own notes and what you kind of think, so that the next one will have everybody's notes from from that chip thing. I think it'd be kind of cool. That way, it's like kind of a collaborative thing
Right.
that we
I
can all
dig.
kind of get involved in.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I dig it. And these bottles don't have. Yeah, I don't see the NFC on the horse's heads.
No, that's
Yeah,
just on
it
the
has to be the
55%.
bottles.
The rock top 55%.
Yeah.
Uh, that'll have that in future lots. Uh, Not these coming ones, but the future lots that I do for the repo will have the NFC. I had to work out some issues with the ones here, but yeah, I want to find a better quality one than the one that we have now. So,
Yeah.
um, but no, man, that was the kind of the whole idea. So, but yeah, that 44 añejo that you have there, I think that's also a different type of sipper altogether. Um, so I'm curious what you think about it. But yeah, going forward, 1/3 of it will be neutral French oak, and man, I'm really excited for it. And I'm also looking for kind of funky Caribbean barrels and just random kind of stuff that I found. And I have a cousin that actually makes wine in Aguascalientes, and one of her famous wines is called Sophie, Sophie. It's a Sophie wine out of Aguascalientes, Mexico. She actually just won gold in Brussels, um, which is really cool because that añejo won gold in Brussels as well, and she did it the same year. And we have like a family chat, and it was kind of cool to have my cousin, both of us, kind of have that medal. It was kind of a special moment. But eventually, I'm gonna have one of her barrels. We'll do a barrel pick. We're gonna bottle it with wine, and then I'll put tequila in it, and we'll do like a type of like a blanco rosa, but from a Mexican in my own family wine, and sell it as a set.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, no, I love the nose on this. The first note that I think I got out of it, is one of those dark, cherry. Um, I, I'm drawing a blank on the brand, like a Bing cherry. Um,
Maraschino.
Maraschino. That one's a little bit more red and crisp. This is
Yeah.
to me. It's like like a bourbon. What you would see a bar put a cherry into a bourbon. That dark, you know, marinated
Well, I
cherry.
thought that's what the maraschinos was. Weren't they those dark, like really dark marinated ones? I
Uh,
thought
the,
that was
the
a maraschino.
maraschino, I think, is the ones that is you put on your ice cream and that type of stuff. It's that bright red one. Um, but I mean, this is that.
Luxardo,
Yeah, maybe.
like
But
with the yellow label.
uh, that's the first note that I really got out of it, and you know, it's very nice. And I could smell the French oak.
Yeah, it's sort of on the top, towards
Yeah,
the end of the yeah.
I can see where you say cigar. It
Yeah,
almost has a tobacco
a little bit
think
like a
to it.
leathery. The
Yeah,
mid palate, you get a little
yeah,
bit of a leather tobacco, and I kind of associate it with like a nut, like a
yeah,
walnut,
yeah.
slightly tannic. You know how walnuts have a slightly tannic kind
Hmm.
of like, yeah. So I think walnut is actually a little bit more accurate for me.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I love it. So I love, and I didn't bring the repo in here tonight, but I'll have to break the repo out. It is one of the horse heads, so hopefully it's in the same era of stuff, and I'll get to
Yeah, it
take it
is.
all through.
Yeah,
And then we'll make this one quick. I could be here all night. So,
yeah.
what was the passion? I mean, I know that you wanted to make something that was affordable. Um, it ended up becoming a well for restaurant near you.
Yeah,
Uh,
a lot of restaurants right now. We're in Colorado and a couple other states, in Oklahoma and Las Vegas and Nevada and here in California. It's really taking over some of the previous wells, and that's kind of what I was looking for. I wanted an alternate to the same wells that we had that I don't think had enough of what I wanted in a tequila. Um, I wanted a big agave punch right in your mouth right away, but also not have extra pepper or actually kind of burn,
right,
um, and still have a bit of a unique finish. And the yeast that we're using actually, I think, gave it a little bit more of a salinity towards the end that I really enjoy in a cocktail. One of the things that I've seen that mixologists do is they put a little bit of saline, like a salt solution, like 1 parts water and salt, into it, and it really opens up your whole flavor profile. Um, it's nice, man, and that's what I was kind of looking for in the potro. I honestly wanted something that was, we say in Spanish, bueno, bonito y barato. So something cheap, well made, and looks good.
That
And that's kind of just like it's 42% ABV, under $30 for 1 liter. You're getting 33% more. And it's just kind of like it's an easy. I don't feel bad for my people putting squirt or kind of whatever you want in it, you know.
yeah.
And I think it makes a great cocktail that way. And I can, if I want it over the rocks or I want it neat, I can still have it neat. I don't mind having it neat. Some people actually really like it. If you're shooting it because sometimes you still want to do shots with the friends and whatnot because you just want to, go for it.
You're
Puro
not gonna
pinche
feel bad.
potro.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it is, man. It's an unpretentious. I kind of do like I have a whole slogan behind it. If you want, I could read it, but I have a whole slogan behind it that I pretty much tell people like, get off your high horse. So it's almost like a joke against Cabal, because it's like it really is just a way to kind of ignite the warrior spirit of just enjoying the times with your friends and time with the buddies and just kind of not overthinking about it. Now, that's a complete contrast to sitting down and thinking about what you're drinking when you sip on Cabal. That's
Yeah.
what I want to do. So I have to. Sometimes I just want to drink with the homies, and then sometimes I just want to sit down, have a cigar, have a thought out conversation, just kind of talk about whatever comes to our mind and things that we find interesting. We're sipping on a Cabal, and then sometimes we're out and about and just kind of listening to great music and just you know crushing skull crushing cocktails or shots or whatever.
And I think that's what I really like about tequila as a whole. I mean, unlike bourbons and stuff like that, I don't want to say you're getting one flavor profile, um, but
It's more limited.
yeah, it's definitely a lot more limited. But yet tequila's kind of made as you know you guys are sitting there and you're playing with things and you know in your experimental stages and I don't know how many experimental bottles or barrels you got hanging out in the warehouse that you're playing with, but you guys play with all these different things, high proof, low proof, mid proof, playing with all the different proofs and each one of them has a special occasion to be used. So kind of like what you were saying about you know this. It could be used as sipper if you want. It's
Yeah,
got some amazing notes to it.
yeah.
Um,
It's not
it-
as complex. It's not as
no,
deep. It kind of falls off a little bit. I mean, I'm the first one to
yeah,
say it falls off a little bit towards the end, but it has a big punch in the beginning and a nice. Well, at least what I
yeah,
find, like nice flavors that you're like, oh, this is cool. Like I'm enjoying this.
yeah. But yet, like you said, I mean, with all the flavors that you get on the front end of this, and I'm gonna say mid. I mean, it doesn't fall off until it's almost you know
Yeah,
all,
yeah. It doesn't fall off right away, but like it doesn't. It's not as long as like other stuff that.
yeah. And it's just you got all these different occasions for all these different proofs and
Yeah,
agings and stuff like that, and I think that's one of the nice things about tequila.
yeah,
Just depending on you want to find that girl you take home, or that one that you really don't want to take home and show mom. You have all these different ranges of stuff to really enjoy. So
yeah. Yeah, and that's what I enjoy too, and that's what I enjoy about mezcal and agave spirits. And I've learned to enjoy it about other spirits. Yeah, I'm a big gin fan as well, because I think there's a lot of interesting things that can happen with gin. And I think I mean, at least I think it's making a bit of a resurgence. The only one I don't drink is vodka because I see no point. I think you're just drinking for literally just effect.
right.
um, I get nothing really satisfactory from it. And I always used to make fun of my girlfriend, you know, to drink vodka. I'm like, what are you doing? Um, and she's like, that's the only thing that I get. I'm pretty relaxed about other stuff, but that's the only
Yeah.
thing that I do get kind of, I guess you would call it a little bit slightly snobby on. It's just like, what are you drinking vodka for? Just that's only kind of like
Yeah.
I just can't, man. I can't. I try. There's actually a vodka that's like I think is really cool. They use like some fresh olives. Like they seep the water. And they told me all these stuff. I'm like, man, that's so freaking cool. And I was like, I wanted to sip on it, and I really wanted to like it. And I was just like, damn it, like I don't
It's
like it.
still vodka.
Yeah, it's still vodka. I would love it, but the only problem that it has is that it tastes like vodka.
Yeah.
But when I tell
Absolutely.
people, when people ask, uh, if people ask me what's the best tequila, and my dad always says, ours, but I don't. That's not my. I tell people the best tequila is whichever one you like, and mine's the second.
Uh,
So
all right.
you know,
I got to pat you on the back. Well, somebody's going to pat you on the back. We got Rick who's chiming in, and
yeah.
he said that we had a blind taste test with Fortaleza Blanco, G4 Blanco, Ocho Blanco, and this.
Wow,
And they picked this.
wow, wow, wow. Could you
Here,
send me that?
I'll screenshot it. I will screenshot it
Yeah.
right now.
Um. Wow, that's hell yeah, man. That's beyond flattering. All right, let's do it.
It was a unanimous pick,
Wow.
and these guys are
No, man, that lineup's
experienced
insane.
pilots.
No,
I've
yeah,
been seeing it, man. It's popping up all over the place. It's crushing it wherever you're at, and they seem to be really digging the juice a lot.
yeah, man. That really happy about that. And everything I've ever done, whether it be the mezcal, the cabal, or the potro, is just something that I'm looking for, and I'm like, I can't find it, so then I just make it, um, because I'm like I want to, I'm looking for that, and blending the two types of yeast, I think really set it apart, differently, and I think, man, that's freaking awesome to hear because it
I,
is.
I just sent it to you
It's
on a text,
yeah, okay,
just so you
hell
can
yeah.
have. Otherwise, I may forget. I get old. Uh, Dude, yeah,
Wow, that's
you're killing it.
uh,
And
you know,
these are not novice.
no,
Uh,
yeah, are you kidding me?
CJ
You would have.
knows I review regularly, yes, and he does. Uh,
Wow,
they he's pretty solid.
wow, that's I know that lineup. I have all those bottles around me. Um, man, that's super high praise, and thank you so much, CJ, for the opportunity to kind of tell my story.
Absolutely.
To explain a little bit more about the pretty bottle. That I sometimes I'm aware of what people it might not take to it, and I don't blame them,
Yeah,
um, at all. Not in the least, actually. But I just I gotta stick with what's real to me, what I'm my convictions and the reasons why I do it. And nothing's accidental. Nothing's just because it looks okay. Everything has, as you saw in the bottle, everything has a lot of intention behind it, and everything isn't uh, precisely there for a reason. And I'm grateful to you and the community and people that talk about us and share with us with friends, um, because and you could talk to some other people that they know me. I'm always selling other brands, man. If I'm in a liquor store, obviously they don't have my stuff, or even if they do, and I feel like they might be gravitate towards something else, I'll gravitate towards them,
yeah,
towards something else. And I don't know. I don't mind it, man. And I don't really see. I'm a lot of friends with some of these other tequila makers, and I really don't see it as a competition. I see it as a we're all kind of in this, doing our own thing. We're all kind of like looking next to each. Oh man, what is that? Oh, we kind of all get excited for each other, and it's just kind of like a cool thing because at the end of the day, we just want to make the dopest stuff we can,
Yeah.
like the best stuff we possibly can, and that's my motivation. I want this to be the worst version of my tequila now, and then in 10 years, 15 years, make some kind of some progress with some things and keep learning and keep asking a ton of questions and be annoying to people that know more stuff than I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to cut you short because this is
Yeah.
actually the first time I'm almost out of time. Uh, but I've been on here almost 2 hours, and with you probably, hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes now.
Yeah.
So I want a little time with you after, just so I can show you
Yeah.
what I got stuff. But man, dude,
Yeah, man.
this has been real. I really enjoyed it. I'm super excited to really finally get to taste your tequila. And dude, I get the hype now, from the few people that do,
Uh,
put out the praise for it and stuff like that. It is an amazing tequila, and I mean, you definitely got something special. And if this is your low point, I'm going to be ordering.
yeah, I appreciate that, man. No, we work really hard, man, and any little thing I catch, like I said, I'm making some tweaks in the next batch. Any little thing I catch, that I'm like, okay, this will probably do this, which will probably do that. I try to implement it. So, as the more we go, the more we learn. And thank you again, man. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share. And thank you to everyone that listened. I'm sorry if I'm long-winded about stuff, but like you said, I can
No,
get romantic with stuff.
yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you later. Thank you for joining us, and this will be back up on the Facebook, YouTube, Instagram this time. So we're killing it.